Following the recent announcement that the U.S. Navy has named its next two Gerald R. Ford-class nuclear-powered aircraft carriers as the future USS William J. Clinton and USS George W. Bush, the question now arises, what names will be chosen for CVN-84 and CVN-85? And more importantly, is a future USS Donald J. Trump inevitable? If the current naming trend continues, honoring modern U.S. presidents, the final two Ford-class carriers are widely expected to be named after Barack Obama and Donald Trump, completing a sequence that reflects the most recent generations of American leadership. With Trump returning for a second term in January 2025, speculation has grown around whether CVN-85 will bear his name, following the precedent set by previous presidents whose names now adorn some of the Navy's most powerful warships. The Gerald R. Ford-class supercarriers are the most advanced and expensive warships ever built. Designed to eventually replace the aging Nimitz class, the Ford class represents the cutting edge of naval engineering, featuring innovations such as the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, EMALS, advanced arresting gear, and a reduced crew size thanks to improved automation. The class began with CVN-78, named after President Gerald R. Ford, who served from 1974 to 1977. He was not only a U.S. president, but also a Navy veteran who served during World War II. The second ship, CVN-79, was named USS John F. Kennedy, honoring the 35th president and another former Navy officer assassinated in 1963. But the naming convention took a turn with CVN-80 and CVN-81. Rather than honoring political leaders, these carriers were named for symbols of American naval history and heroism: USS Enterprise and USS Doris Miller. USS Enterprise CVN-80 revives one of the most iconic names in U.S. naval history. The Enterprise lineage includes 8 previous vessels, among them the legendary CVN-65, the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, which served from 1961 until its decommissioning in 2017. Meanwhile, USS Doris Miller is a groundbreaking choice. Dory Miller was an African-American mess attendant who became a national hero after manning an anti-aircraft gun during the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, despite having no formal weapons training. He became the first Black American to be awarded the Navy Cross, and CVN-81 will be the first aircraft carrier named after an enlisted sailor. These deviations demonstrated that ship names could be drawn not only from the presidency, but also from the deeper well of naval legacy and individual valor. While the Navy often emphasizes that ship naming is a careful and apolitical process, the reality is that such decisions are inherently symbolic. According to an official Navy spokesperson, the Secretary of the Navy weighs ship naming decisions carefully and deliberately based on a comprehensive information package. The recent naming of CVN-82 and CVN-83, both after living former presidents, reinforces the connection between naval legacy and American political history. Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro, appointed under the Biden administration, made the decision to name CVN-82 after President Clinton and CVN-83 after President Bush, citing their service and dedication to the country. While future naming decisions are not openly discussed as a matter of policy, the pathway seems increasingly clear. If the Navy continues down this presidential path, the next logical names would be USS Barack Obama, CVN-84, and USS Donald Trump, CVN-85. The use of presidential names for aircraft carriers has become a dominant tradition in modern U.S. naval history. Of the 10 Nimitz-class carriers, 7 are named after former U.S. presidents, including USS Ronald Reagan, USS George W. Bush, and USS Abraham Lincoln. The remaining 3 were named for significant naval leaders or political figures: Chester W. Nimitz, Carl Vinson, and John C. Stennis. Even though President Jimmy Carter served from 1977 to 1981 and is a former Navy officer himself, his name was instead used for a Seawolf-class nuclear submarine, USS Jimmy Carter, making it the only U.S. submarine to carry a president's name. The vessel remains in active service. As for Joe Biden, who served as president from 2021 to 2025, his name has yet to be used on a U.S. Navy vessel, though it remains a possibility in the future, especially for a support ship or another class of warship. If the current naming pattern holds, CVN-85 could be named USS Donald J. Trump, possibly during his second term in office. Trump is widely credited with increasing defense spending and implementing a strong peace through strength doctrine, which appeals to a segment of military leadership and political allies. His supporters argue that his presidency brought a renewed focus on naval readiness, including plans for expanding the fleet. Interestingly, John Phelan, a known Republican donor and close Trump ally, is rumored to be his pick for Secretary of the Navy in the upcoming term. If appointed, Phelan would have direct influence over ship naming decisions, further increasing the likelihood that Trump's name will appear on a Ford-class carrier. However, naming a ship after a living or sitting president, especially one still active in politics, has always been controversial. Critics argue that such moves politicize what should be a national institution, while proponents say it recognizes impactful leadership while it's still fresh in public memory. While naming CVN-84 and CVN-85 after Obama and Trump seems probable, the Navy could choose to diverge once more and honor a different category of service. Other options include celebrating other notable enlisted figures, as with Doris Miller, reviving legacy names like USS Ranger or USS Hornet, commemorating fallen sailors from recent conflicts. The Navy's history shows that nothing is ever truly guaranteed. At its core, the name given to a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier is more than just a label. It represents values, legacy, and strategic messaging. Aircraft carriers remain the most visible and potent symbols of American power projection. With a combined displacement of over 1.1 million tons, the U.S. Navy's 11 nuclear-powered carriers account for nearly half of its surface fleet tonnage. The Ford-class carriers in particular are designed to serve well into the 21st century. Their names will be spoken, remembered, and debated for generations. Whether it's a name rooted in political leadership, military heroism, or historical tradition, what's certain is that the choice of names for CVN-84 and CVN-85 will reflect the values and narratives the U.S. wishes to project both to its citizens and to the world.